back to Football Picks. I'm Marty York, along with two of the finest prognosticators, NFL prognosticators you'd ever find, handsome Howard Kamen and Uncle Ben of UncleBen'sFootball.com. You can catch his stuff on that website, UncleBen'sFootball.com, and we're talking to Uncle Ben live from his home office in San Diego. The Chargers play this weekend, don't they? I want to get into your favorite picks for this week, your top picks, gentlemen. But both of you have the San Diego game listed as one of your top picks, but in different ways. Howard, let's start with you. The Chargers play Oakland. They're 9.5-point favorites. This is down as one of your top picks for this weekend. Why?
Well, San Diego always plays well in December. I don't know what Phillip Rivers' record is exactly in December, but I know that they always do well in December. The Oakland Raiders, listen, this is a team that wasn't expected to do much during the regular season, and they've actually done a lot better than a lot of people have thought. I think the Raiders have put a lot of points on the board, but this is a big game for San Diego. They still have playoff implications, and I think they're just going to go out there and destroy Oakland Raiders this coming Sunday.
So take San Diego, lay the 9.5.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben, I know you'll be going to that game as you go to all the Chargers games when you're down there. But you're going a little bit of a different direction with this Oakland-San Diego game. You like a total in this game.
I do, and I will be attending this game, Marty, and the weather's going to be perfect on Sunday. So I do like the total, and I like over the total, actually. It's 50.5 points right now. Yes, like Howard said, the 7-7 Chargers are continuing maybe a too little, too late run for the playoffs here. Everybody's excited about it, but they need a little bit of help along the way here. And I just don't think that the Chargers always seem to play down to the level of their opponent. That's the only thing that worries me about the San Diego Chargers. When they play good opponents, they seem to raise their game. When they play poor teams, they don't play so well. Phillip Rivers is definitely having a Pro Bowl year, but what I like about this is the Oakland Raiders have scored 24, 27, and 31 points the last 3 weeks, all losses, by the way.
Right.
And they seem to just moving the ball pretty well, but their defense is just killing them, and they're just falling apart at the seams. So I see a lot of points in this game. Like Howard said, Phillip Rivers is having an all-pro season. San Diego still has something to play for. Oakland's putting a lot of points on the board. Their defense is playing horrible. What does this all tell me? This all leads me to see that there's going to be some points. It's going to be like an old-fashioned Wild West shootout, I think, this game, boys. I like over the total here. Both teams probably going into the 30-point range. I think this is going to be somewhere in the 60 points total, and I like over 50.5 on a sunny Southern California day. Oakland, San Diego, over 50.5.
All right, so there you go, folks. Handsome Howard suggesting you take the Chargers, lay the 9.5, and Uncle Ben says, go with the over. It's going to be a shootout, over 50.5, Oakland and San Diego. Now, as I've said before, and this has proved to be 100% true, when both Ben and Howard are onto a game, onto a side, you go with it, folks, because it always comes true. And that's the case with what's happening in Cincinnati this week. Minnesota comes into Cincinnati as a 7 to 8 point underdog. Both of you gentlemen like Cincinnati and like to lay the points here. Let me ask you why, Ben.
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals were rolling along, looking so great, and everything was wonderful. We talked about what they might be last week, Marty and I, we discussed they might be one of the surprise teams in the AFC, and now, all of a sudden, it could all go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
If they lose this week to Minnesota and next week to Baltimore, it's possible that the Cincinnati Bengals could still miss the playoffs. So, this is a paramount game for the Andy Dalton gang, in my opinion. And Minnesota coming off a huge win last week, upset victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're not so mighty. They have a 2-13 against the spread record in last road games off a double-digit, facing an opponent off a double-digit loss, and the Bengals lost last week. I think it's a real reality check time for them. The Bengals have to win this game. And by the way, the Cincinnati Bengals this year at Paul Brown Stadium, 6-0 straight up, 6-0 against the spread. I like those numbers, boys. They don't want to have to play the Baltimore Ravens next week to make the playoffs. I think that Cincinnati Bengals are going to get it done this week. It's a must-win for them. They're favored by 7, minus 120. You could get it right now. I say hop on the Cincinnati Bengals right away. They're going to win this game, the Cincinnati Bengals. It's paramount for them. I like the Bengals this week, minus 7 against a Viking team that maybe sort of played over their heads last week and is due for a bit of a comeback.
And Howard, Cincinnati did not look good against Pittsburgh last week. That was a game that I thought they would look stronger in. They just didn't look good in Pittsburgh. And Minnesota looked absolutely fantastic against Philadelphia without Adrian Peterson. So we just heard Ben's rationale, and it's very difficult to argue with what he's saying. It makes a lot of sense. And so obviously you're saying, forget about last week. It doesn't matter what Minnesota did. It didn't matter what Cincinnati did. What matters this week is this matchup at Cincinnati. And like Ben mentioned, Bengals are strong at home. So you're looking for a rout here?
Yeah, well, Cincinnati, I mean, they couldn't have looked worse than they did on Monday night. And the team never obviously looks as bad one week as the following week. And Minnesota, surprised Philadelphia last week. So it sets up for a huge game for Cincinnati here. Definitely Cincinnati has to win. It's a must-win game for them. They don't want to wait for the final week against Baltimore. They want to cinch things up right now. They're fuming after that Monday night loss, and they're just going to be coming out all guns a-blazing. Cincinnati is a very, very strong home team. Like Ben mentioned, they have a great record at home, and they seem to always get it done at home, and they'll get it done again this week against the Minnesota Vikings. Take the Bengals by 2 touchdowns in that game.
Okay, so there you go, folks. It doesn't matter whether you're laying 7, 7.5, or 8, whatever you can get it at. Go ahead, lay those points. Doesn't matter, because both Howard and Uncle Ben like Cincinnati to win big. There's your freebie. And as I said, the record proves that when both Howard and Ben agree on something, it looks awfully good. That's the only one you're going to get where they are agreeing on something this weekend. But so look for Cincinnati. And let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. We gave them some airtime a little earlier, and Justin Tucker and their impressive victory last week. This week, they face the New England Patriots. They're favored in this game by 2.5. I'm not going to ask Ben about this game because he really is not too interested in this game. He's not recommending it as one of his top picks. But Howard, you like Baltimore, and you like Baltimore a lot. Lay in the 2.5 points against Tom Brady. Why?
I love Baltimore in this game, and Baltimore. Let's look at it this way. They had the Super Bowl hangover. They got off to that not such a great start at the beginning of the season. People were counting them out. The last few weeks, Baltimore has now come to life. I think Baltimore is a team that is peaking at the right time. They want to keep the everything rolling. New England, they haven't looked impressive the last few weeks. I mean, they barely beat Cleveland. They lost last week to Miami. Going into Baltimore, I just don't see it. I see Baltimore winning that game. Brady, no Brady. I like Baltimore there.
All right, and go ahead, Ben.
Just comment on that. I think this is going to be one heck of a ball game. Okay, granted, Gronkowski's out. New England doesn't look the same, but there are just a couple interesting things I'd like to say. That the last 8 years in their final road game, New England is 8-0 straight up, 7-1 against the spread. So, that's just an interesting little stat I had to throw out there. And you got to get this one, Howard and Marty. Tom Brady is 11-2 straight up and 12-1 against the spread in his NFL career as a dog in a game off a loss. So they're dogs this week. They lost last week to Miami.
Barely.
Including 8-0 straight up and against the spread when facing an opponent off a win. Baltimore won last week. Just saying. Just saying.
I still like Baltimore.
Yeah, Howard's not going to change his mind. He's got his own reasons. But I understand what you're saying, Uncle Ben.
Those stats can be ignored, gentlemen.
I agree that those stats can't be. My feeling on this game is, proceed with caution, because Tom Brady is capable of coming back in the last minute. You've seen it 1,000 times. You said so yourself right on these airwaves. However, you've got your reasons for recommending Baltimore, and for those of you who have faith in Howard, go with Baltimore. Let's look at another game that I know Howard does not have an opinion on, but it's an intriguing game. Tampa Bay is playing St. Louis, and St. Louis is favored by 4 points. You like the dog in this, eh, Ben?
Well, here's a game that I look at. It's one of the games where there's no playoff implications, actually. So people look at me and go, what are you looking at that game for? Well, there's just one stat in this game that I cannot neglect, okay? All I can say about this game is the Rams looked like world beaters last week against a playoff-bound New Orleans Saints team. So my rule, you never look as good as you look. You're never as bad as you look, like we all say this season. They were just unbelievable last week. Everything went their way. But I say, guess what? How are you on that one this week? They're not going to be doing that against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they have a better defense, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, than the New Orleans Saints do. And it's going to be hard for them. But you got to get this one, guys. The Bucs enter this game looking for revenge from last year's 28-13 loss in Tampa as 3-point favorites. But here's the stat. The St. Louis Rams, that's right, are 0-17 against the spread. That's right, guys. 0-17 against the spread as a favorite versus opponents seeking revenge. And like I just said, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. I just say enough said. I'm not betting into an 0-17 streak. I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +4 to beat the St. Louis Rams right in St. Louis this week. I like the Bucs for the upset special of the week, +4. The Rams go down this week, 0-18 against the spread. They'll be as a favorite playing an opponent with revenge. Take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +4.
All right, and Ben, do you have any thoughts about the New Orleans-Carolina game?
I do. I like this game. This is for all the marbles in the NFC South. This is obviously the marquee game of the week. I mean, there are some great games this week, but this is the marquee game of the week. 2 weeks ago, Carolina went into New Orleans. They got blown out. They couldn't move the ball at all against the Saints D. My guess is they figured out a few things over the last couple of weeks on how to move the ball better. New Orleans has been exposed a little bit, like we talked about earlier this week, on the defensive side of the ball. Seattle put some points up on them. St. Louis put some points up on them. My guess is that Carolina figured out how to put some points up on them, too, with these last 2 weeks, as they only scored 7 2 weeks ago in New Orleans. Looking at the flip side, I see New Orleans last week played horribly. You can't hold this offense down for 2 weeks, regardless of the opponent. I don't care who it is. They're going to put some points on the board. They only found the end zone, I think, once last week against St. Louis, and it wasn't until late in the ballgame. Well, they're going to score some points this week, the New Orleans Saints, as well, I say. And this game, they're going to hold nothing in the playbook for this game. This is it. This is all the marbles. There's no holding back this week. This playbook is going to be deep. There are going to be all kinds of plays that you haven't seen this week. These teams are going to put some points on the board. I just see another high-scoring game. I like the over 46.5 points. I don't see how you can hold New Orleans down 2 weeks in a row, like I said. And I think that Carolina is going to have a better offensive attack than they did 2 weeks ago at the Superdome. And they are also going to put some points on the board. It's going to be a great game. I like over 46.5 in this one, gentlemen.
All right, and I'm going to throw in a little prediction. I never make comments like this, but in this case I will. I know what Sean Payton is like. He does, as Ben said, he's going to pull up. He's not going to hold anything back. You're going to see at least one onside kick in this game from the New Orleans Saints. Guaranteed. If there's a prop, if there's such a thing as a prop on whether it be an onside kick, if there is, take it. Take it, because there's going to be at least one onside kick. I wouldn't even be surprised if it were the opening kickoff. Mark my word on that, and then next week you guys will say, man, Marty, you were right about that. All right, so let's just review the hot picks from our experts. Both Howard and Uncle Ben agree that you should take Cincinnati and lay the points. Howard wants you to take San Diego minus the 9.5 against Oakland, and Baltimore minus 2.5 against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Uncle Ben is recommending that you go with Tampa Bay plus the 4 points against St. Louis, and then he's got a pair of overs. He thinks there's going to be shootouts in San Diego, where the total is over 50.5 against the Raiders, and in Carolina, where the total is 46.5 against the New Orleans Saints. So there you go, folks. Your freebies for this week. And speaking of freebies, you know, the holidays are coming up, so we have a little gift for you with Uncle Ben's Christmas holiday selection in the NCAA. Don't go away. We'll be right back with that.